Okay. Hi guys! Okay, so this is my author's chair. Woohoo! Okay. So my story is about my favorite time that I've ever went fishing, and my cat is obsessed with this chair. So bear with me. Alright. So it was a warm summer morning in Salem. The ground was still wet with dew from the previous night. In the stillness of the morning, my alarm clock sounded, waking me from my deep sleep with a jolt. I sat up quickly and slowly, getting my bearings and brushing the sleep out of my eyes. I stumbled out of my bunk bed that I currently shared with my younger sister. Ugh, sharing with sisters is no fun. As I left my bedroom and traveled down the hall, the smell of waffles danced across my nose, making me quicken my pace. When I got to the kitchen, it was full of family members tossing things and throwing them every which way into coolers that lined the kitchen counter. I sat down next to my brother, who was shoving food into his mouth so fast I was sure he couldn't even taste what he was eating. Hurry and eat! The biggest fish will always bite in the morning, he said, almost choking on his last bite of waffle. I just rolled my eyes and ate my waffle like a normal human being. Soon after that, we all had our coolers, poles, and sunscreen packed tightly into our truck, and we took off towards the lake. On the way to the lake, we had a blast. We listened to country music, we talked and laughed so hard that our bellies hurt. These memories were the ones that I always look forward to in the summer. As we were getting closer to the lake, my mom leaned in and said, "Would you like to use my special pole?" I beamed back at her and nodded, my head exuberantly. Every fishing trip we had ever been on, my mom had always caught the biggest and best fish. And me being 10 at the time, I felt like I was never going to catch anything good with my little Barbie pole. "Yes, I would love to," I said to her. I know that magic doesn't exactly exist, but at this point in my life, my mom's pole was as close to magic as I was ever going to get. The rest of the trip, I dreamed about the whale-sized fish that I was going to catch, just because I had the best pole. The drive seemed to go on and on. After that, I couldn't stop bouncing in my seat. I was falling asleep when all of a sudden my dad announced that he could see the lake. My head shot up and I pressed my face up to the glass to hopefully get a glance of the water. When it was finally visible, the blue lake shimmered and glistened as the sun shot its warm rays down on it. I wanted to start fishing immediately, but my mom was insistent that I get sunscreen sprayed on me. After a quick dusting, I grabbed my camp chair and I took off towards the shore. Soon after, I was waiting for my dad to tie a hook and get me ready to go, but it took him forever. He had to set up everyone's lines, and my brother was too stubborn to help me at all. All I could do was stare at the water longingly, desperately hoping no one caught my giant fish before I had a chance to catch it. Finally, my dad called me over. I jumped out of my seat and ran to him. "Now remember, Kaylin, this is Mom's pole, so you have to take really good care of it, okay?" "Yes, Dad," I said. Even though I was only half listening, my mind was really on that big fish in the lake. I grabbed the pole and bolted back to my chair so I could catch the biggest and best fish. My first cast whizzed out of my reel, quickly submerging into the weeds with a kerplop. "Ugh," I grunted, reeling back in. My second cast went much better and glided out of my pole very nicely. I was able to sit down and wait for my enormous fish. After about 5 minutes, I began to get impatient, and I decided to reel back in. I reached into our jar of bait, and I got the biggest glob of bait I had ever gotten, because a big fish needs a big piece of bait, right? Anyways, I cast it out and waited probably about another 4.5 minutes before I reeled back in with frustration. My dad had noticed my frustration and came over advising me that I should keep my pole in the water a little longer and maybe use a little less bait. I agreed and let him bait my next cast, casting it out. My dad's cast went halfway across the lake, it felt like. I was sure to catch a fish. During this time, I had watched my brother and sister reel in quite a few fish. I began to get green with jealousy. I tried to sit back in my chair and enjoy the day like my dad had suggested, but after sitting and still no success, I began to get bored and hungry. After a while, all I could think about was lunch that we had back in the car. I looked quickly at my pole. It didn't move an inch. So I thought that it wouldn't hurt to go get some lunch from the car, right? I wouldn't be long. As I began to make my way up the hill, I heard my dad call, "Hey, Kaylin, you need to watch your pole." I rolled my eyes, glanced back at him, and just kept walking. All of a sudden, I heard a big ruckus from behind me, and I turned around just in time to see my mom's pole shooting into the water. Before I knew it, her pole had disappeared into the lake. I tore down the hill, trying to see if I could rescue my mom's pole back. No luck. The pole was gone, and I mean gone. After that, the waterworks came, and I sobbed, and I sobbed, and I sobbed. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't believe I'd lost my mom's pole. Her lucky pole at that. Even though my mom knew that I had lost her pole, she still comforted me and told me that it was okay. She knew I was sorry, but I still didn't feel any better. My dad came over and gave me a hug, telling me he was going to cast his pole out a little bit and try and catch it. We all knew this was a long shot, and it was just to make me feel better, but he did it anyways. After a few casts, he called out, "Hey, Buggins," which is my nickname. I think I caught something. Even though we didn't think it was the fish, it might have cheered me up to catch. Even though we thought it probably wasn't my pole, we still thought it would be fun to reel in a fish. So I got up and I stood by my dad. We all laughed a little. There was no way he could have caught my pole. But as he reeled in, all of a sudden, a pole popped out of the water. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was my mom's pole. I jumped out of my mom's lap and ran over to help my dad. We couldn't believe what happened. After the pole was out of the water, my dad said he could still feel something, so he had me reel in the rest of the pole. The reel was filled with water, so as I reeled, it spit water back at me, but I didn't care because my mom's pole was back, and that's all that mattered. The fish on the end of the hook put up a good fight, but as I pulled it in, we realized that it was huge. It wasn't a whale, but it was the biggest fish I had ever caught. I couldn't believe it. After we got it out of the water, we took tons of pictures and had the best day ever from that moment on. Later that day, I decided to make a promise to myself that I would never leave another pole in the water. And to this day, I have never left a pole in the water again. The end!